Welcome back to the Shuffle Squad. Zach Lesage here. Today we're going to be covering over our post-Atlanta tier list. Now I know a lot of y'all are like, we love the tier list, Zach. This is awesome. Can you add these icons? I've definitely added a few more icons based off the results from Atlanta. And some of y'all have been in the comments being like, Zach, why do you post a top 10 best decks video every week? And why do you post a tier list video pretty much every week? Well, the tier lists are just meant to give you my thoughts on the top 40, 50 kind of decks. And as much as they might be similar, it's one of those things where I want to always give you the most information possible. The metagame's always changing. So while some decks do well at an online event, they might spike up. Some decks might actually end up going down, whatever. I want to use the tier list as a way to kind of give my thoughts on a broad range of decks. And then the top 10 best decks is really how the metagame changes every week. In this video, I'm just going to be taking some of the icons, clicking them wherever I think they should go, using the same structure that I've been doing for the past few weeks now of the best decks, really good decks, kind of good decks, mid decks, kind of bad decks, really bad decks. So we'll see exactly where these decks go. No promises that your deck makes it anywhere. And if I put your deck in really bad, I hope that you don't hate me. If that sounds good to you, give this video a like, share, subscribe, and let me know what you think about the decks, where the placements are in the comments below. I try to give you a real spot. Like, I'm a player that plays on the kind of I want to say structures, whatever. I play at regionals. I have my world championship invite pretty much locked up, so I try to give you my best impression. We're gonna start off with our Chaladon Zorak. I think it did kind of okay at Atlanta across the board. I don't have access to the deck list right now. I'm recording it on Sunday, but I think the deck is kind of good. I don't think it's really good, and maybe it ends up going to be really good, but it seems like just like okay right now, being able to draw cards, pitch away energies, whatever. I think Poison our Chaladon ended up doing a little bit better. What else do we got going on here? Gardevoir, as I'm recording this, Henry Chow I think just made it into the finals, or just made it into the top 4 with Gardevoir. I think Gardevoir is definitely just one of the best positioned decks right now in the metagame. Having answers with the Elise Clefairy into Dragapult seems really cool. Dango list, I'm not entirely sure where every Dango list was, but I think Dango in general, I'm going to put Dango as Dango to Dunsparce, Dango, Dragapult, and then I think I have another Dango here, Dango Scizor. I'm going to just put the Dangos at really good. I don't think we have a defined list for it. Whereas I've been more on the Dunsparce list. I know that Gabe Smart, who just won Brisbane Regionals, played the Dragapult list. And I think there's a few people that were talking about Scizor. So I just want to kind of put those there for right now. I think that some of those they're really good. Dango, I think, was the number 3 play deck. So I'll have to go with there. Greninja Xatu is a deck that I think has gone nowhere. And I think I'm just going to put it really bad. Like, sure, Greninja has some case, but the lack of double turbo, double colorless, whatever in the format has really like made this deck go downhill. We've seen some players play with Xatu or Baxcalibur to make it work, but it's just not really holding on here well. Same thing, like Festival Lead is kind of bad. It's just like, it's not super well positioned when it comes down to it. Like, enough decks like Gardevoir and Dragapult have ways to do extra damage counters and move damage counters around. So decks with low HP typically struggle. Decks like Ancient Box, I think, end up like putting themselves in that same kind of category. Like, we're in a format with big stage 2 Pokemon decks. Little Pokemon decks typically don't really hold their own against those. Blissey to me is kind of like a mid deck. I think that you could have some answers with Blissey, but it's like just not generally great. It's just where I'm at with Blissey. I don't think necessarily wall decks took over. So any of these wall deck players are not holding on. Feraligatr probably puts it like there. Maybe I put Feraligatr a step above at kind of good. Maybe I put, you want to know what I'm going to put it at mid. We're just going to go mid all the way. Raging Bolt, Belly Bolts, kind of bad, not great. I think that Raging Bolts, if I could find it on here, Raging Bolt Noctowl seems like it's a really good deck. Although Blitzel played it, Belly Bolt just doesn't hold its own. Not necessarily like as well as we want it for other decks. Dragapult Charizard actually ended up being a little bit better than I thought it was. A few people played it. So I think Dragapult decks, and I'm just gonna start like pulling Dragapult with Dragapult Charizard, Dragapult Dusknoir, and Dragapult Monkey Dory, or just straight up Dragapult decks. Those decks did pretty great across the board. So it seems like if you want to be doing well, you play either Goldango or Dragapult or Raging Bolt. And sorry, Dragapult Dusknoir should be up here, and Dragapult Monkey Dory should be up here. Dragapult Charizard, I think, is a step below them. So Dragapult decks, Goldango decks, Gardevoir decks, Raging Bull decks, those really seem like our wave in our format that could be pretty good. Not sure where else the other Dango, like maybe one of them ends up being the best deck to be like the 4 horsemen of the format, but we'll see. Archaludon Double. I think Archaludon Double ends up being kind of good. It's fine. Definitely like with the other Archaludon deck. Archaludon Poison ends up becoming, I think that deck ends up becoming really good. It's the one that's played the best. I think Isaiah Chevelle made top 16 with the deck. So if I was going to build the deck and monitor it or put it in like one of those placements, that's where I'd be kind of putting it, is that place. Azumarill to me is kind of like it's kind of like a mid deck. It can hold its own, has a little bit more damage output than like the Ancient Box or Festival Lead in most cases. It's okay. Blaziken Monkey Dory is a deck that you could definitely get a bunch of damage on your Pokemon. It seems cool, but I'm not entirely sure where I want to place it. I think it's not kind of good. It's not kind of bad. It's definitely mid. So that's where we're going to place it. Charizard Pidgeot, I think falls into the mid category. Decks that struggle against Gardevoir and Dragapult and sometimes the Dunsparce. Chen Pao, I think, ends up becoming really bad. It's just not really like well equipped for any of these unfair stamp builds of a lot of different decks out there. Conkeldurr ends up becoming really bad. Maybe I'll put it at kind of bad. That seems fair. Conkeldurr, just again, like you'd rather be playing Slowking at this point. You might be wondering where Dragapult Iron Thorns goes. I think Dragapult Iron Thorns is kind of a mid deck when it comes down to it. Great Tusk ends up becoming a mid deck as well. EVBox did kind of good. I think like maybe I want like a category under really good. Maybe really good is fine for this deck. This is like more or less top 10-ish decks, and I think that like Goldango's generally was like kind of falling in that category. Frostlass to me seems kind of good. It did okay, but it didn't do anything like super special. Cerulege for me ends up becoming a mid deck. I think it just doesn't necessarily hold its own well in this format. Charizard Noctowl ends up becoming kind of good instead of really good. I think that we haven't necessarily seen like the right metagame for it. Gardevoir and Dragapult might be a little bit tough. Hopzation I think falls in the same kind of category. It's not as super well equipped as we want for the format. Maybe we'll see more Hopzation in our Chalodon builds, like a double build. Hydrapple doesn't really hold its own in this format. It's just one of these other decks, more or less filler. I think that the Belly Bolt deck ends up becoming like it's kind of bad, kind of like the same thing as the Raging Bolt deck. But it's like it's okay. Like I don't know, if there was like a almost mid deck category, that's where it would be. Milotic ends up becoming like kind of good. Could always shift up. Like decks are not always stable here. Mamoswine ends up becoming like, I think it's a mid deck, definitely has some problems, but it's cool when it works. Pidgeot Control ends up being kind of good. I think like there's some element of success there, but it could just struggle in our general metagame. Turbo Moon ends up becoming like an okay mid deck, not as good as some of our other offerings here. United Wings ends up becoming kind of bad. I think it's like in that category of decks that once were good or have like a little bit of hope. Hydreigon I think ends up going in the same kind of category. Like a lot of decks just aren't really worried about Hydreigon right now. Miraidon, I know before like we had Future Box, and I have Future Box on here. I might have put it under as Iron Hands. I think it falls into a mid category. It's like just Lightning Box, but it's not as strong as we want it. Trapagos Noctowl ends up becoming a really good deck. So you can see a lot of things got better after Atlanta. Walsall I think ends up becoming mid, just not as good as Milotic. I guess it's non-Milotic Walsall is the best way to put it. Future Box I think ends up becoming a mid deck, not really holding its own well. Terra Box, I want to put Terra Box as like it's either really good or it's kind of good. Maybe it goes up here. I think like maybe Terrapagos. No, I think it ends up becoming at the really good category. Like Dragapults and Gardevoir are like the top 2 decks. Okie Dokie is like low-key mid. I think that's probably fair. Palafin is kind of bad, but maybe it's mid. Enzork is probably mid. And then Slowking is probably mid. Like, we have a few things that step things above kind of good. But overall, like, there's just not a lot in this metagame that's like this is like the top 50 or so decks. And I think it kind of places them decently well after Atlanta. Now, I haven't seen the full results, but like Gardevoir and Dragapult really took the cake at Atlanta. And I think a lot of the other decks like Goldango, Raging Bolt, some Dragapult builds, Archaludon, Poison, Eeveebox, Terrabox, Terrapagos, Noctowl, they all fell in the top 1632 range. Then there's some other decks that ended up doing okay, but I think like the mid deck categories, like these are the decks that you might want to master. They're kind of fun. Sometimes you can play them for a challenge or a cup in the right case, but they're not always great. The kind of good has a little bit more like opportunity to like grasp onto the metagame, but like keeps themselves out of the really good due to weakness against the top deck or just general inconsistencies. Kind of bad decks are like, you could definitely see them around. Like I think Hydreigon, like I love playing Hydreigon. I think it's really cool. Do I think it's particularly well equipped into the metagame? Not really. It did win an online event, but like these are events where like, I don't want to ever like talk down about online events, but when you're not putting hundreds of dollars into a tournament to pay for the registration, travel, and lodging and food and stuff like that, like going to a Pokemon regionals, the reason why people are playing Gardevoir and Dragapult and stuff is because they want to win it all, whereas online events are typically free. So someone could sit there in their pajamas and play against a few other decks that are a little bit less competitive. Like online events by default end up being a little bit less competitive just because of the results there. And for the really bad decks, I just think that Greninja, Conkeldurr, and Hydrapple don't necessarily hold their own too well. They're decks that might be dying off a little bit. Maybe I was kind to some decks, maybe I was mean to others, but that's what a tier list video is going to be for, right? I'm always going to try to adjust these. Now, since I'm going to be in Monterrey, and I'm currently in Monterrey, or on my way to Monterrey when this is going up, there's not going to be a tier list video for next week because I won't be able to look at the results of Monterrey and put a video like this together while I'm away in Mexico. So we're just going to replace it with another PTCG live video, but I hope that everyone enjoyed watching this, seeing exactly where the decks are kind of positioned, and maybe your deck's there, maybe it's not. If there's any decks that you think I'm missing that have done well at cups, regionals, stuff like that, I usually try to add a few per week, but let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll add any other decks that you want for the next time that I make one of these videos. Peace out, and have a great one. Want to support the Shuffle Squad? Be sure to check out all of our sponsors in the description to pick up Pokemon TCG singles, sealed, and PTCG live codes.
Tabi no hajimari wa tsune ni michi e no ippo de aru. Sore wa yami e to tsuzuku. 初めの一歩を踏み出すには勇気がいる。そして旅の終わりには旅を始めた時の自分とは別人になっているかもしれない。旅に出よう。物語の次の章がお主を待っている。将軍の道を歩め。侍の箱と共に。 アルティメットガードが送る冒険の第一章。刀将軍の道、近日発売。
Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed the content that we have today, and maybe you'll click on one of these other videos, enjoy those videos too. If you haven't already, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments what video you want to watch next. Until next time, we'll catch up with all y'all later. Have yourself a great day.